Hello and welcome to this episode of the Driven Podcast. My name is Sam Parkinson, and today I've got a very special guest. We've got Lisa Marsh, who is the CEO of eLumina. Now, one of the biggest questions facing electric vehicles in Australia isn't
Mm,
necessarily about city charging. It's about how do you get across vast
mm,
stretches of land um, on an electric vehicle, and how do you electrify thousands of kilometers of highway where the grid barely exists and communities are hundreds of kilometers apart. Well, Lisa is well placed to fill us in a little bit as she's been brave enough to tackle this very complex sounding challenge as to how do we electrify a large amount of highway in very remote parts of Australia. So, Lisa, thank you very much for joining the Driven podcast.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you for having me. I look forward to talking to you and sharing my stories around traveling to the outback of some vast landscapes in Australia, that's for sure.
Yes. Well, before we dive into the highways and the hardware, and take us back a little bit. So, how did Illumina come to be, and why did it need to exist in the first place?
Yeah, so I actually I was consulting actually into a battery manufacturing company in China for about 2.5 years. And through that journey, it was actually during COVID time, a lot of it, I met two other um, very talented Australian guys, Ethan and Chris. And together we were actually wanted to bring the idea of battery integrated charging to Australia because we could see a real need for it in regional and remote communities. And because we were kind of like the battery specialists and having battery integrated charging, it just made sense. But it was kind of hard to commercialize because we didn't have a lot of EVs on the road at the time to kind of warrant putting expensive hardware out in those regions, and especially there wasn't a lot of EVs out in remote areas, and the take up is still quite low. But about 2.5 years ago, or nearly 3 years ago, the federal government came out and said, we're going to put charging infrastructure every 150 kilometres across the country. And we saw that as a great opportunity for us to then start our business and promote to them that without our technology, that's probably going to be quite difficult, because there's a lack of grid, as we all know, or unstable grid supply, especially across regional and remote areas. And so to try and be that ambitious to put charging every 150 kilometres without battery integrated charging technology, I think probably would have been impossible. I don't know how they would have done it. So we actually, at the time, NRMA had the Driving the Nation program where they were rolling out charging right across the country, and under that program, and we approached them and said, look, this is the technology that we've got, and we think this is going to help you to achieve your goals. And very quickly, I think it was probably only about 8 weeks from the first conversation I had with NRMA up until the time that we deployed our first unit with them. So it was quite quick. And since then we've deployed a number of others, as well as building our own network.
Okay, so how do you? I mean, you've been working with NRMA, but in terms of how do you engage with communities in such rural parts of Australia? Do you just sort of rock up and say, "Hey guys, what do you think about having some battery integrated storage systems for EV charging, around here?" Or how does it work?
Yeah, kind of. You just rock up. Like, with the don't underestimate the just rock up thing, because when we take the Great Northern Highway, which is a project of Illuminers, and we own that network, is us. And this is something that we did ourselves. You can call up these communities, these remote areas, and say, hey, we've got this idea. And they might go, yeah, yeah, okay, no worries. And the conversation really doesn't go far because they are very aware that if you're living in the city and you've never been to somewhere like the Great Northern Highway, you probably have no clue what's actually involved. I mean, this is 2,400 kilometers of road that doesn't even have any grid supply there. So there's no power there, and there's nobody driving an EV. So in order to really build a partnership with those communities and be taken seriously, it's literally rock up to the roadhouse. And I did that. I got in a car, I drove the whole distance many times and met with these community site owners and had a conversation and shared the idea and got their buy in through purely that rocking up.
I mean, surely, I would imagine, at least in some instances initially, when they've seen, you rock up from a major city and into this extremely remote part of the country, and then suggesting that you know, put some EV chargers around the place and electrify the highway where there's barely even any grid at all. Were you met with a little bit of, bemusement at times?
Oh, they thought I was absolutely crazy, Ben. Let me tell you, I got there and they looked at me like I had two heads. Like, A, there's no EVs out there, right? They're like,
Yeah.
first of all, it's like, why? Like, why do you want to do this? There's
Mm,
no EVs. We don't imagine our community adopting EV technology anytime soon.
mm,
And driving up and down the highway, it's heavy commercial vehicles the whole way, and they're all big diesel trucks. Like Australia's biggest trucks are there, whether it's road trains or big wide trucks. That's what's out there. And then there's all the work utes that are supporting those
mm,
trucks and those mines. So of course, they absolutely thought that I was crazy. And it takes time to build the relationship and get them to understand your vision and actually work out what problems they are facing and how do we solve our problem, but to also engage with them in a partnership that potentially saves problems that they have.
mm,
Um, all of those communities are, they're struggling financially. They're very small communities. One thing that is always going to be looked upon favorably is how can we generate extra revenue into our community?
mm,
And by sharing with them that, if we put EV infrastructure out here and we promote it for you, and we did that through Tesla Owners Club of WA and organizing rallies with them so that they go up there and use the charging infrastructure. We've already started early conversations with some of the ministers around how they can also promote the area, whether that be by tourism buses that are going to take tourists up to the national parks in electric buses and having those tourists stop in those locations and buy coffee, buy a pie, buy a sandwich and a paper, whatever it is, spend a little bit of time there in those roadhouses and getting them to understand what is possible, like if we just give it a go, like let's just see what's possible.
mm,
So that was one of the things that obviously that instantly got their attention, like, hey, why not? Like anything that can kind of bring extra revenue into our little business is going to be welcomed with open arms. And then the second thing is because when you're out there, sorry, you have to remember like you can only drive during the day. So like I had to actually sleep in the same community. I was staying at the roadhouses where everybody else is staying, and you kind of turn up and I'm at Q Roadhouse and Jill comes out of the kitchen and says, right, dinner's at 7, we're having lamb. There's not three different options and everybody meets at 7 and everybody sits down for lamb and it just is what it is.
yep,
And you get talking to everybody and everybody's really friendly. Like it was really warmed my heart, to be honest, and like being out there and then what I started to learn was because you're eating with the kitchen staff and stuff like that, like speaking to the kitchen, like they have these big reservoirs where they're putting all their cooking oil into the reservoirs, and it's costing them money to get rid of the cooking oil. So the seed oil that they're cooking with, it costs them money to get rid of it, and then and and that's a problem. And then I went away and thought about it, spoke to some really clever people, and we engineered our battery integrated EV chargers to be coupled with biodiesel generators where we could take their seed oil, put it into a reservoir, feed it into the biodiesel generator. To then generate power to charge our batteries to then charge vehicles, and they would get a revenue from their seed oil, and they would no longer have to sell their seed oil. Yeah, like pay for somebody to take their seed oil away. And those moments were really revolutionary for those communities where Even today, if you drive down there, but like these site owners across the 6 sites along there, they all know me quite well now. And if you were to go there and say, "Oh, Lisa, she electrified the highway," because let's face it, that's what I say. I say I electrified the highway, but if they go, they'd say, "Oh, Lisa, oh no, she solved our chip fat problem." So whilst, what I say I've achieved, it's probably different to what they say I achieved, but, ultimately, we kinda solved each other's problems, and did something that was, win-win for everybody, really.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, same outcome, but different things solved. I mean, I can just imagine you, turning up to a roadhouse and suggesting, "Look, how about you've got grease. I wanna use that grease to generate power to electrify the highway so we can have EVs come across it." And I can just imagine the, uh, the initial response to that sort of suggestion from someone just coming out of nowhere and, suggesting that they use their grease to electrify their transport on the highway that they're on. It must have been quite it must have taken a little bit of time, I mean, to get their heads around it, I would imagine, as you
Yeah, of course. And then it was really about explaining to them that I was trying to create a real partnership with everybody there. I wasn't trying to just put something there today. I wanted to build on a relationship over the next 10 years. Like I wanted to say, let's put this solution here today. It's DC fast charging. It's over 200 kilowatts of output charge. So this is phenomenal to achieve this in a place that has no grid. Like this is unheard of. And so we are already so far advanced on that highway just with step 1.
and just sorry, just to clarify, this is being powered by chip fat?
Yes.
Right. 200 kilowatt, charging,
Yes.
sorry, by chip fat.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Okay, yep, carry on.
Yeah. And
I understood that
and
correctly.
so, from day one, we have 200 kilowatts of output charge. So ultra fast DC fast charging, because we wanted to set up for even destination charging for trucks as they come online.
Yes.
And whilst it's not going to charge a truck completely, it will offer some sort of small amount of destination charging. So,
Mm,
so we have that from day one. And the plan is to, as more EVs come online, trucks come online, and the sites get busier and require more demand, we will need to increase the battery capability.
mm,
So we're going to have to put a bigger battery there. So we want to set things up to say, right, so we will be set up to put a bigger unit there. So instead of having like a 200 kilowatt battery, let's put a 350 kilowatt battery in there. And instead of having just the chip fat, let's couple that with a whole bunch of either ground mount solar or roof mount solar,
mm.
and have the extra power source coming into the batteries to still keep up with the charging demands. So we have committed to a 10-year partnership with all of those site owners, and have committed to expanding on the sites as we need to.
Mhm,
All of the sites will be finished complete building. The completion of the build will be done by the kind of about mid-February. It's a bit slow at this time because it gets really hot in that area. But they'll all be online with ChargeFox by mid-February.
and so this we're talking about the Great Northern Highway here.
Yes.
This
Yep.
sort
So it goes from Perth to the Pilbara.
Yep.
Our first site starts at a place called Paynes Find, and Catherine, who's the owner there, so remarkable and just so forward thinking. Like she was one of the ones that really adopted this straight away, and so much so that she's now ordered a Tesla. So she's going to be the first person that's living in a Great Northern Highway community to buy an electric car. And you know what? We can sit here and go like that's only one car, but my gosh, like just so remarkable that we've got one person living in such a remote area with no grid. No grid. There's absolutely no grid there at all. And she's just bought an EV car. So
Unbelievable. What a fascinating story. Yeah. I mean, it just goes to show you get one case study and someone sees that someone else can do it, then that's, that's enough to start the domino effect, I suppose. I mean, in the big cities, we're finally starting to see, that regular 10% of new car sales being electric. Um, you know, uh most months now. But I think part of that is just
Yes.
other people seeing that other people, their friends are getting EVs, their family's getting EVs, and they're finding that it is actually, um, you know, not too bad to have one, and it's actually quite feasible.
Yeah,
But
that's right. And I mean, every site is also very different down there. And it's like nothing else. This is like nothing else in Australia, what we're doing out there, nothing else. There's nobody else would be comparing to what we're doing. We're dealing with how do you put this charging infrastructure in a location on the site that doesn't interfere with road trains, which are, I mean, I don't know, 40 meters long, like this is massive stuff that's out there. And yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that you've got to take into consideration on where do you place the hardware, how are you going to service the hardware. Um,
yes, well, that's what I mean when I questions. I mean, the servicing aspect, these places are hundreds of kilometers away from the nearest, well, near anything really.
yeah.
So what does that look like in terms of, maintenance? I mean,
Yeah.
how does
So you've also never met a more capable bunch of people. These people are so self sufficient out there. Like they don't get the luxury of going down to Bunnings 10 minutes away and grabbing something or going to Middies and getting something for electrical. They have their own little um, hardware store, if you like, on all of their sites. They've got a little shed and it's got bits and pieces of everything. And
yeah.
they are just about all the maintenance person that is on the site is a qualified electrician. So one of the beauties of what we've done out there is being able to train that local community member on how to service our assets.
Mm,
All of our assets are actually capable of being remotely managed anyway, but you know. Clearing out the air filter or something like that, then each of the sites has a maintenance person who's now being trained.
mm.
Um, I mean, talk about overqualified for the area, right? They're trained in battery integrated EV charging and they are, you know, living
Yeah.
in absolute remote Australia. So
I mean, the model is I mean, it's incredible, but it does rely on genuine interest and motivation from the site owners, doesn't it? Because without that, it would.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And all of the site owners really got involved in what we were doing. Like it was a bit of excitement for them. So, and even in like Kew Shire, the council out there, they were so quick to respond. I mean, they built the concrete footing to sit the unit on. They
Mm,
also built some bitumen for the bays as well onto the dirt. And they responded so quickly. Like I reckon it was within weeks of us being there and agreeing to what we were going to do. The council was there doing that. So it's very different to when we think about CBD stuff, you got to put in an application, wait 10 weeks, get a DA. I'm not sure. But when you're dealing with the Shire, and the Shire also brought down a forklift for us to use. And so it's just that real community spirit that really lives
yeah.
on there.
Is there a blueprint? Like, is anything anywhere else in the world had a similar type, project where you've had, EV infrastructure being implemented in such remote areas, of a country?
Not that I'm aware of, not as remote as what we're talking about here with the Great Northern, where there's, yeah, no grid. No, not
Yeah.
aware of.
Okay. So because the Great Northern Highway, what's that, about 3,500 kilometers or something like that?
Yeah, and the stretch that we did was about 2,400 from Perth. Actually, our first charger being in Paynes Find,
Yeah.
was about 4 hours out of Perth, and then it goes all the way up to Oz which is just at the base of the Pilbara.
Right.
That's a part of the Ashburton Aboriginal community.
Mm.
And and they're very sophisticated once you get up there. It's not far from Tom Price, which is probably a more popular town that people have heard of. But they actually already had batteries and solar at that site. That was the most sophisticated site of the 6 sites that we went to. Um, but yeah, they definitely all got involved. The same as Oskey, they put their own concrete footings down, and some of the other sites they didn't need it. But yeah,
So, okay, so this it's gonna be initially, do you see it being used mostly by not commercial transport in the first instance, right? It would be for tourists or for people doing that drive around WA.
Yeah, I think the first will be the diehard fans like Tokwa, which is Tesla Owners Club WA. They're gonna be like, "I wanna be the first one to go down the Bolton on the highway in my Tesla."
Yeah.
And I already know people that wanna go down there and do that. So,
Mhm.
for sure, it'll be those diehard fans that really wanna,
Mhm.
first. And then I think, it'll be, yeah, the kind of mums and dads that are doing the round trips because what this actually does for the major corridors of Australia, if you wanted to get to the Pilbara in, an electric car, you'd go the coastal route, which
Mhm.
is so much longer than going the Great Northern Highway. So now they can get up to Broome and up to the Pilbara and the national parks much quicker by going inland on the Great Northern Highway. So
Yeah.
I actually think the take up is going to surprise us. Like people have said to me, how do you even commercialize that when there's no cars there? But until you put the chargers there, you're not going to get the EV cars there. So, and I think that it will get uptake quicker than what we're forecasted. Put it that way.
Yeah. I suppose one thing to remember also is that there are logistical, challenges with having fuel in these remote places as well. So, it doesn't just sort of turn out of nowhere,
Yeah,
come through a pipe. They need to be delivered to those spots as well.
yeah,
Um, so, it's not like you're replacing trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist in terms of making sure that, places have the fuel or electricity in this case to charge up or fill up vehicles going through.
yeah. That's right.
Yeah, so I can see from the commercial perspective how that would be a very interesting prospect. So
It was a little bit like less about installing chargers and more about engineering resilience into the system, I guess.
yeah, 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 and just kind of utilizing, the resources like solar and
Yeah, like seed oil.
exist, yeah. So that's gonna be up as soon as February. I mean, that's quite soon. I mean, they'll be working in some heat though, won't they?
Yeah, they
Getting
will, but, that's the amazing thing about our product. So it's battery integrated chargers, the
Yep,
biodiesel generator, and the biodiesel reservoir. It's all commissioned before it goes out there, and ChargeFox is put on there. So this whole thing is working, and literally, we then put it on a truck, we drive out to the site, and we put it down, and it's online within, I don't know, 20 minutes.
good grief.
Yeah, so there's not these extensive civil works that need to be done or anything like that. The Kew Shire got involved and wanted to put this bitumen down. Um, it didn't have to happen, but they were quite excited about this new project, so they did do that just to make it look even more, up to date. But yeah, so we don't actually have to spend a lot of time out in the heat because it'll all be done before the truck drives out there to drop off the hardware.
Sure. Bit of a silly question maybe, but, I mean, some more remote places that I've been to where there's been an EV charging station, one of the challenges I've had is network connection and actually trying to connect with the app so I can charge the vehicle. Is that a challenge out there?
They actually all have really good Telstra signal. It was one of the things that I did in my very first visits to these sites.
Mm,
So outside of meeting with the people and then talking about, well, where could we actually put this charging? Where's a safe place for it to go? Where is it going to interfere least with your road trains and everything that are coming through? And so we'd spent a lot of time talking that through. And it was also to check out the signal. So they all have good Telstra signal out there.
mm,
But we would also be putting each unit will also have a backup Starlink
okay,
capability to it as well. So
yeah,
that will be installed on each of the units as well. And each of the units is actually being built or placed inside a 10-foot shipping container.
mm,
So that creates it protects the batteries from the heat a little bit. They are designed to go in that kind of heat, so they'll be okay. But for battery life, it is nice if you can lower the temperature a little bit. And then also to protect them from a little bit of the red dust, which let me tell you gets into absolutely everything. I had to throw my shoes out after 1 week in the outback.
yeah, yeah, yes. Wow. Um, So, okay, so you're involved with the arena in terms of funding. So you're involved in the arena driving the nation program. Is that right? Have I got that right?
No, so actually the Great Northern Highway was all done through we placed an application with the WA state government under their charge up grant applications or
Okay.
program.
Right.
And we were successful in that, where Charge Up WA has contributed 50% towards the hardware and some of the installation costs, which
Mm.
has kind of helped us to commercialize the program, to be honest. So yeah, that was under state government, but we were the applicant and we're the owners and operators of the network along that road.
Okay. So I mean, government support in making it's
Yes.
still quite essential in making this sort of
Yeah,
remote.
yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, if we are going to be serious about transitioning all of the roads across Australia, the government's going to have to step in because
Yes.
yeah, it's gonna be tough to try and figure it out, without a little bit of support from the government, that's for sure. So WA definitely did a great job with their charge up. I wouldn't be the only person to say that, and with them, without them, we wouldn't have been able to make it happen. That's for
Y-
sure.
Yeah. And so where does Arena come in with their programs? Are you guys working with them as well?
So Arena, we have put in an application with Arena. So there's an application pending with them under the Driving the Nation program for heavy haulage corridors.
Hmm.
That's for the air highways. So taking all our learnings from the Great Northern, um, and meeting all these great people, and I actually think we are the experts in this whole community engagement and putting this together in these areas. I actually then headed out to the air highways, so Adelaide to Perth, met with a number of site owners out there. Uh, Basically, cookie cut the idea or what we put together on the Great Northern Highway, but across 15 sites this time with much more powerful charging infrastructure. So, I approached these 15 sites in very much the same way, just got out there in my car and said, "Hey, look, this is what we're gonna do." The same philosophy around, we can use your cooking oil so that you don't have to pay to get rid of it, but we can also put ground mount solar at your site. So the design that we've done there is brown mount solar, biodiesel generators, using the cooking oil from the roadhouses, and a 350 kilowatt battery, which is what they call a 1C battery cell without me getting too technical. But what that means is it offers a very fast, very powerful output of power. So where we can do just over 400 kilowatts of output charge, totally off grid, 100% off grid, which supports truck and bus charging, which is what the requirement of that program under Arena was for. Um, but that application is pending. So fingers crossed, if Arena come to the party on that, we will deliver by June of next year, 15 sites from from Adelaide to Perth.
With up to sorry, what was the power that you were saying there? Up to
400 kilowatts of output charge per site.
okay. How do you how do you how do you keep these very powerful chargers? How do you keep them electrified? How do you charge them? I
Yeah,
mean,
so, well, on the Great Northern Highway, they're getting charged by the biodiesel generator.
yeah, but I guess, but the biodiesel generator. I mean, are they able to actually input that much power to keep up with such big output? I mean, it's
So they actually they trickle feed 40 kilowatts of power into the batteries, and because it's battery storage, the battery is like acts like a buffer, right? So it holds 200 kilowatts of battery storage in there and continues to trickle feed. So if a car comes along and starts to take out, let's say they take out 60 kilowatts
hmm,
of charge, well, that the battery's still getting fed from the biodiesel generator and still replenishing.
okay.
So, I mean, like, look, if Tesla Owners Club, if the Tesla Owners Club went out there and they had 8 cars all in a row, the battery would be depleted. And that's probably once in a year situation at this stage.
Hmm,
But you could comfortably probably charge around 4 vehicles before the battery was depleted, one after the other.
hmm,
And that's unlikely to happen on the Great Northern Highway, I would say, in the next 2 years that we would be that busy with EVs. But If we are, that's very exciting for us, and we will then increase the battery size and put ground mount solar because, like I said, we want to have a 10-year relationship with these guys. We want to grow the site as the site grows and as the demand comes on board. So that same philosophy has been adopted on the air highway, but we're starting with a bigger unit. So it's a 350 kilowatt battery with 400 kilowatts of output charge.
Okay. God, it almost sounds too I mean, it sounds almost too good to be true. I mean, you just kinda rocked up to these communities, never really been done before. "Hey, how about we use your cooking oil to create some EV chargers?" And they're like, "Yep," and they learn how to become engineers essentially and being able to maintain, some parts of the charging system. I mean, surely there's some learnings that or things that didn't go quite as planned that you've taken into account for the air highway project. What were some of the things that maybe you're doing differently for this one as a result of the lessons from the first one, or is it just went that well that you just basically
It did go well. I think the number one thing is because we're revenue sharing with those communities.
mm,
You actually need to give them a benefit. So it's not just the cooking oil. It's also where we're revenue sharing the income that's coming in from every EV session with them,
yep,
and getting them to feel a bit inspired about what's happening.
yeah,
So that because if the site owner doesn't buy into it and they're not prepared to be like your maintenance person, you know what I mean? Like if a snake crawls up across the plug,
mm,
for example, we kind of need them to untangle
yeah,
the snake from the plug, you know? Like these
yeah,
guys are they have to care about what's happening. And that's through relationships, being out there and talking to them and letting them know that we're partnering with them. It's a true partnership with each site owner.
mm,
And they're also they feel more comfortable about the fact that we're not digging up their road. It's not permanent stuff. Like if it all didn't work and they didn't like it, or they didn't like the location of where it was, we just pick up the machine and we move it. Right.
mm,
With the forklift, we pick it up and move it to a new location,
right, okay,
put it
yeah,
on the other side of the roadhouse. And so all of that flexibility is what mattered.
yes, okay, yes, the ability to pull out if they wanted to, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
imagine why the offer of some economic input and some, some opportunity to generate some extra revenue and create some more
Yeah,
opportunity.
and then at the air highway, we've got 70 kilowatts going into those batteries, and again, it's battery buffed and, trickle feeding into the batteries, and that's through a combination of ground mount solar,
Mm,
biodiesel generators, and some of the sites actually do have power there. So in the instances where they have power, they're supplying, 40 kilowatts, and we're topping it up with another 30 kilowatts through, solar panels
right, okay,
being
sure,
fed straight into the batteries.
sure. Wow. And how do you see the next few years going in terms of the electrification of fleets and the commercial vehicles? I mean, this is this is obviously a big barrier, I would imagine, for the trucks and those giant there's giant vehicles going through and driving thousands of kilometers across remote parts of Australia. Having the ability to access charging would be a big barrier for them. With that barrier potentially taken down, what are the next major barriers for the electrification of some of these giant road vehicles and
Yeah. Well, I think without battery integrated charging, it's not going to happen. Like we have to have batteries. We have to have batteries if we're going to electrify major corridors and transition our trucking fleet, our heavy haulage trucking fleet.
Mm,
And we are involved in so many exciting projects. Let me tell you, all of these great new big heavy haulage trucks that are coming in, mostly from China. We have already partnered with those. We're doing trials with those. We're doing a trial this week at the moment with McColl's.
mhm,
McColl's is they are the biggest agri transport company in Australia.
mhm.
They transport wheat for yeah major wheat companies, and they move a lot of heavy stuff. And so they're actually trialing the Windrose truck, and they're also trialing the Deepway truck. So these trucks aren't um, being used at the moment commercially, but they're in the process of getting like their Australian certifications and stuff like that. And so, what we've been able to do because our products are so mobile is take our products to them,
Mm,
test, allow like McColl's to test the Windrose truck towing, a big wheat trailer, and getting charging destination charging out in regional Victoria.
mm,
So, we're being able to support a lot of those big trucking brands coming into Australia. So, I think we're at the forefront of seeing what's possible and how exciting it is. And so for me, I'm, I feel very positive about more of these trucks coming online because I speak to the drivers, even and the truck drivers, they're like, "I've never even seen an electric truck until this year," and it just drives beautifully, the power that it has going uphill and all that sort of stuff. It's actually, being, very much welcomed by the truck drivers themselves.
yeah, I can imagine also just, not having that amount of noise in the cabin for such long periods of time would be quite a
Yeah,
welcome.
yeah, yeah.
So it sounds like eLumina, you're not just doing the highway electrification, you're also actively playing a role in bringing in the vehicles that would sort of use these highways.
Yeah, absolutely, and supporting fleets and supporting, these whether we're doing another trial with Toll as well, so
Mm,
Toll and McColl's, allowing them to be able to see yeah, I guess it's breaking down those barriers, right? Break down the barriers of what's possible,
mm,
and to be able to support the change. So, what
awesome.
trucks are possible? What can the truck do? And so they get over that and they will realize like this truck is awesome. We need to get these trucks in our fleet. This can absolutely achieve what we need it to achieve, and we're not going to have to pay for diesel anymore. So there's the upside in that. And then there's the second barrier of how do we get charging? And these trucks all go to regional and remote areas. They go to destinations, whether a truck goes from, a farm to a factory to the CBD. And an example of that is like, um, it might go to say a potato farm and then go to the potato and then go to a factory to get potato chips made, and then from the potato chips it goes to Woolworths to put the potato chips on the shelf. That whole cycle, how do we support that destination charging? Because while a truck can travel from the CBD to the farm, it needs charging in that remote farm to be able to carry on its journey. And
Mm,
that's what we're being able to do is provide that destination charging, out at these regional and remote areas to ensure that the loop that the logistic companies are going on, is not cut short due to charging limitations.
mm. And we in the, uh, in the residential space or the private consumer space, EVs, we've seen the price come down to parity pretty much now, especially with the influx of a lot of, Chinese brands coming into to the country. Is it the same kind of thing with trucks and heavy vehicles? Are we seeing those upfront costs coming down to almost close to what their diesel counterparts would
Yeah,
be?
some of these trucks are really, really well priced.
Mm,
Absolutely. While they're trying to enter into the market, they are really well priced. And then what you find the fleet companies are doing is they're looking at that whole of life cost. They're not just looking at, well, how much does the truck cost me today? And it might be a little bit more than the diesel truck, but when you look at the 5-year whole of life cost around the savings on diesel, the savings on servicing, the maintenance and even the warranties that are being offered, the electric trucks are really outweighing the diesel trucks on that whole of life cost. And that's really what's important because they don't buy a truck for today. They have it for the whole 5 years in most
mm,
cases. So they
mm.
have to really calculate that whole of life cost.
Yeah.
And also the fleet companies are picking up their gain a little bit on the residual value side of things. So, when they're setting these residual values on these trucking fleets for electric trucks, they were kind of amortizing the financial payments, over the whole 5 years, and not allowing residual values. So the monthly payments on some of this stuff was really high. But now they're actually putting solid, residual values on some of these trucks to ensure that the monthly costs in these fleets are comparable to the diesel, trucks.
And so you're saying that there is enthusiasm from the fleet side that
Yeah,
that
definitely. Yeah.
there invested. They're not just flipping it off as a pipe dream. They're just
No, no. It's happening at the bigger end of town. You know, when you think about McColl's and Toll, and we know that Limfox is doing some stuff, and we know that the likes of Pepsi's doing stuff, and so these big end of town guys are kind of looking at it first, and they're the ones doing the financial modeling. They're doing the modeling around the utilization, the trips, the driver behavior, and and I'm working out where these trucks can charge because they don't want the driver to have unnecessary downtime.
Mm.
So they're doing all of that kind of modeling. And I think that the more of the bigger companies that adopt this stuff, that will then give the confidence to the smaller fleet companies, all the way down to, the one man band kind of one driver, one truck kind of guy that's out there.
Mm, yeah. Absolutely fascinating. So what's I mean, I was gonna ask what's coming up for you in the next 12 months? It sounds like already quite a lot. You've got the Great Northern Highway looking to launch in February, and then you're looking at the Air Highway in June, did you say? Or is that sometime mid-year?
Depending on what, if we get accepted through Arena, and when they announce that we have been successful, let's hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's actually fairly quick. Like, it would be electrified within 6 months because we don't have to do any civils, right? We just take the
Yeah.
stuff out there, put it down, and it's plug and play stuff.
Yes.
So that would be about 6 months from the time that we got approved from Arena. So that's very exciting. Other things that we do, we've got a factory on the Gold Coast. We welcome anybody to come to our factory, and I love showing them around and giving them a factory tour. It's really, really interesting. I do the same thing with women in STEM. So women have come down from Queensland TAFE, Queensland University, and they're doing engineering at school and stuff. And so I take them around and show them, what does a pack look like? What does a battery cell look like? What does it look like inside a battery cell? How does liquid cooling work in a battery? How is it important? Why is it important to keep batteries cool? How do you maintain a healthy battery basically for its life? And they get to touch and feel and play around with that stuff, which they love. We also have done a big investment into simulators. So in our factory, we can simulate a lot of, say, we wanted to know, how does a battery perform in 50-degree heat in the Pilbara over 10 years. We can simulate that by rapid deployment, and then recharging and rapid deployment again. And so we do that over a 10-year cycle. We make sure that we keep it in a heated environment, and then get that data, and then we can share that with the battery industry of Australia. So we don't gatekeep that stuff.
Mm.
And we also have a state-of-the-art dry room, and inside that dry room, we do battery cell testing. So we have very tight NDAs with a lot of leading battery cell manufacturers globally. And if one of their battery cells fails in the field, they can give it to us, and we'll diagnose what happened to the battery cell and then provide a report back to them. So that's really something that we do that sets separate from the business, in the sense that that is for the battery industry of Australia. We just want to play our part in that, um,
Mm.
including what happens to the batteries at the end of their life. How can we make sure that we use them for, you know, well beyond even a vehicle's life?
Mm.
And then playing our part in partnerships with battery recycling and things like that as well. So there's lots that goes on in the background that we get involved in. We're looking at building a sodium battery for Tasmania, which will be for Antarctica, which will be tested in Tasmania, because you can't have a lithium battery um, in an area that's too cold, because it will lithium freezes. So you have to use sodium in Antarctica. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
so lots of different things that we do that, like we are out there. Definitely um, putting charging infrastructure in places that people thought wasn't possible, and definitely pushing the boundaries on that stuff. And we are in a bit of a unique situation. I don't see us having any competitors. You'll always hear me say, and I often stand up and explain to people, we aren't competitors in this space. We're complementary to the space, because there's lots of direct to grid charging you'll see you can go to sites like in Port Perry in South Australia. You can go to Morven, which is 8 hours west of Brisbane, in really remote areas. I mean, Morven's got a population of 164 people, and we have our battery backed integrated charger there right next to an ABB charger because it was worked out how much power was available to the site, and then what was the most cost effective way to get the maximum power out of that. And so we're often right next to these other brands as a complementary product for the best outcome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fantastic. Wow. I mean, what a great story. I absolutely love the fact that that the way that you seem to be untangling what sounds like an almost impossible task of how do you, well, in the event of the highways, how do you electrify, you know, great stretches of very remote land, and rather than doing a bunch of feasibility studies, you've just rocked up and sorted out a deal that benefits both parties, and up and away you go. Obviously, it's a bit more complex than that, but just the I guess that direct community engagement is a really big and essential part of it. Of course,
Yeah, yeah. It's
government.
not just a community engagement, it's the educational piece, even
Yeah.
for the drivers. One of our early sites was um, in regional New South Wales at Mittagong, and that particular site, it had around 30 kilowatts of power available to us,
Mm,
and they wanted to achieve this was under the NRMA actually, so it's their site, they're the CPO for it, but they were using our battery integrated chargers, and they wanted to achieve a minimum of 300 kilowatts of output charge, and they only had 30 kilowatts available. That's all that was there. So
mm,
we put our battery integrated chargers and we put two there, and they both have 15 kilowatts being fed into them, trickle feeding into them to achieve up to 200 kilowatts output charge on each unit. So 400 in total for the site. But it's so, so, so busy at that particular site that, of course, when they've got a function on at the RSL, which is where they are, the batteries will eventually deplete. And then we only have the power that's available to us from the grid. So you've only got 15 kilowatts coming out of this
mm,
charger because the battery's now gone flat, basically, until
mm,
it can recharge. And of course, the driver's there and they get frustrated. They don't understand why the charger's charging so slow or in their mind not working properly. Um, and so they think it's the charger or, but actually that's the power that's there. That's all that we can do with the power that's available after the battery's flat. But what that's actually allowed the NRMA to do is review the data, see how busy the site is, and then make an educated decision on should we invest in upgrading the grid to get more consistent output power to avoid drivers being disappointed when they go to the site.
mm.
So that's good in itself, and then we can remove those charges. We can put them at other locations and run similar kind of studies. So that's why I always say to people, give us a call. We're always happy to do a trial where it makes sense. We have a trial going on at the moment in Osborne Park in Perth. It's a really busy homemaker centre just outside of Nick Scali on the main highway. They're doing a 8-week trial over Christmas to see what the uptake is of that charger. I suspect they're going to have a similar problem to Mittagong, where the battery's going to go flat because it's just going to be so busy. And I'm sure people on PlugShare are going to go, this charger doesn't work and things like that. But that's actually kind of what we need to happen in a way so that we know that when we put the permanent infrastructure there, we put the right, size integrated battery because they'll probably have to go with a 350 kilowatt battery as opposed to a 200 kilowatt battery, something
Mm,
that's a bit more powerful. So
mm.
um, sometimes, they get the negative comments on PlugShare, but they are so helpful to us to make sure that the permanent solution is correct.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So it's not. It's rather than writing it off as a project which has failed. It's just showing that it needs to be scalable,
Yeah,
which
that's right.
of course it is, and it
That's
can.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. Well, I feel like I could talk for ages about this. And I'm finding it's such a fascinating story, and I'm really excited to see how it all goes next year. With the Great Northern Highway, at least initially, and just seeing all the, well, if it's the Tesla Tesla for Club or other tourists or even some commercial vehicles coming through and seeing how that all goes. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on all these developments and all the stuff that eLumina is doing, which is just sounds absolutely fantastic. So thanks for taking the time to yeah, to speak to us on the Driven podcast. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Sam, and thank you to the Driven. And I welcome you and any of your listeners to come down for a factory tour because it really is quite an eye opener.
Yeah. Well, I drive up that way pretty often, so I think I might. Think I might do. And I think our editor Giles is also up that way. So but yeah, for those who are also around that area or driving through, yeah, do pop in and check it out in person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and charge your car. I'll give you some free charging if you come and have a look.
Oh, good. Great. Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Well, what if I got a problem with my battery? Can you have a look at that as well? Can
Well,
you
I personally can't, but I'm sure our engineering team definitely could.
Awesome. Had a couple of issues with my own vehicle recently, but maybe I'll have to drive up there and get a diagnosis. But thank you again for your time, Lisa, and all the best for 2026. Sounds like a really exciting year.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it. Nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.